If someone had told me 6 months ago that the only thing capable of shattering my ironclad control was a positive pregnancy test carrying the DNA of my absolute worst enemy, I would have laughed in their face. Then I would have destroyed their career for even suggesting something so absurd. But here I was, staring at the 2 pink lines on the plastic stick like they were a death sentence. My name is Damon Cross, and at 27 years old, I was the youngest alpha CEO in the history of Cross Industries. I had built an empire from the ashes of my father's bankruptcy, crushed every rival who dared challenge me, and carved my name into the financial district with blood and iron. My pheromones, a sharp, freezing blend of peppermint and crushed ice, made grown alphas lower their eyes and betas scatter like leaves in a storm. I was untouchable. I was invincible. And I was currently 3 weeks late. The bathroom of my penthouse apartment suddenly felt too small. Too hot. The marble walls were closing in on me as I gripped the edge of the sink, my knuckles white, staring at my reflection like I was looking at a stranger. This couldn't be happening. It was impossible. I was an alpha. Alphas didn't get pregnant. That was biology 101. Omegas carried, betas sometimes, but alphas? Never. Except when the sire was an enigma. The word alone sent a violent shiver down my spine. Enigmas were the apex predators of our world, rare, terrifyingly powerful, and biologically designed to override every natural defense an alpha possessed. They were the only ones capable of breeding an alpha. It was a medical anomaly, a freak occurrence that happened once in a generation. And I knew exactly which enigma had done this to me. Sebastian King, 32 years old. CEO of King Consolidated, my business rival, my personal nemesis, the man I had sworn to destroy after he stole the Morrison Tower deal from under my nose 2 years ago, the man whose face haunted my nightmares and whose dark, smoky pheromones still lingered in my memory like a curse. We had hated each other with a passion of 1,000 suns for the better part of 3 years. Every boardroom battle, every hostile takeover, every whispered threat across crowded galas. It was a war that had consumed both of our lives. And 3 weeks ago, at the annual Winter Charity Gala, that war had exploded into something else entirely. Too much champagne. Too many heated glances across the VIP lounge. The way his enigma pheromones, a devastating blend of burning cedar and dark bourbon, had wrapped around my senses like a vice, breaking down every wall I had ever built. I remembered the clash of teeth, the tearing of my suit jacket, the feeling of being utterly consumed by a man who was supposed to be my enemy. I remembered waking up in his penthouse the next morning, my body aching in ways I didn't know were possible, and walking out without a single word. We had agreed without speaking that it was a mistake. A collision of predatory instincts. It would never happen again. But now there were 2 pink lines staring back at me. No, I whispered, my voice shaking. No. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and called the one person I trusted more than anyone in the world. Lena, I said when my assistant answered. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. And give me the address of the most discreet private clinic in the city. Not the one we usually use, somewhere off the books. Mr. Cross? Is everything okay? Your voice sounds. Just do it. I snapped, then hung up. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a sterile examination room at a hidden clinic on the outskirts of the city, waiting for Dr. Hayes, a specialist in rare biological presentations, which was code for alphas who got knocked up by enigmas. The room was cold, clinical, and smelled of antiseptic. I had changed into a paper gown that made me feel more vulnerable than I had ever felt in my life. My suit, my armor, was folded neatly on a chair across the room, and without it, I felt naked. The door opened, and a tall Omega woman with kind eyes and graying hair walked in, carrying a tablet. Damon Cross, she said, her voice gentle. I'm Dr. Hayes. I've reviewed the blood work we took when you arrived. And I demanded, my alpha instincts flaring. I couldn't help it. I was terrified, and terror made me aggressive. Dr. Hayes didn't flinch. She had clearly dealt with difficult alphas before. You're approximately 4 weeks pregnant. The fetal DNA is consistent with an Enigma sire. Given your presentation and the hormone levels we're seeing, I'd say the pregnancy is viable, but we'll need to monitor you closely. Enigma pregnancies and alphas are complicated. The world tilted. I'm pregnant, I said flatly, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. Yes, Mr. Cross. You are. I stared at her for a long moment, then looked down at my stomach. Perfectly flat. Still toned from my daily workouts. There was no sign of the life growing inside me, a life that should have been impossible. The sire, Dr. Hayes continued carefully. He'll need to be informed. Enigma DNA is aggressive. Your body will struggle to maintain the pregnancy without regular exposure to his pheromones. Your system will essentially treat the fetus as a foreign invader unless the sire's scent is present to override that response. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? Your alpha biology is going to fight this pregnancy every step of the way, she explained. Your instincts will tell your body to reject anything that isn't your own. The only thing that can counteract that is the constant presence of the Enigma's pheromones. He'll need to be near you, Mr. Cross. Ideally, living in the same space. Otherwise, your body will miscarry. Absolutely not, I said immediately, standing up so fast the paper crinkled. I'm not telling Sebastian King. I am not letting him anywhere near me. There has to be another way. Suppressants, hormones, something. Dr. Hayes sighed, setting down her tablet. There are medical interventions we can try, but they're experimental and dangerous. The safest option, the only guaranteed option, is the sire's presence. I'm sorry, Mr. Cross. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just grabbed my suit, walked out of the clinic, and got into my waiting car. As the city blurred past the tinted windows, my mind was racing. I wouldn't tell him. I couldn't. Sebastian King was my enemy. If he found out I was carrying his child, he would use it against me. He would take my company, lock me away, treat me like nothing more than an incubator for his heir. No, I would handle this myself. I would find a way. 3 days later, I realized how wrong I was. It started as a dull ache in my lower back, nothing unusual for someone who spent 12 hours a day in a boardroom. But by noon, the ache had spread to my stomach, twisting into something sharp and urgent. I was in the middle of a merger negotiation when it hit me full force. The conference room at Cross Industries was packed with lawyers, executives, and the nervous representatives of a tech startup I was acquiring. I was standing at the head of the table, projected confidence radiating from every pore, when suddenly the room started spinning. My palms were sweating. My heart was racing. And worst of all, my pheromones, usually so controlled, so precisely calibrated to project dominance, were going haywire. Mr. Cross, one of the lawyers asked, looking up from his papers. Are you all right? Your scent. I knew what he was smelling. Instead of the sharp, icy peppermint that made everyone in the room instinctively submit, I was now leaking something soft, something sweet, something that smelled like warm vanilla and honey, the unmistakable scent of a distressed carrier. I'm fine, I gritted out, gripping the edge of the table. Continue. But I wasn't fine. Another wave of cramping rolled through my abdomen, and this time I couldn't hide the wince. My vision blurred at the edges, and I felt a bead of sweat roll down my temple. Meeting adjourned, I heard myself say, my voice distant and strange, "We'll reconvene tomorrow." I didn't wait for a response. I turned on my heel and walked out of the room, ignoring the shocked murmurs that followed me. My assistant, Lena, caught up to me in the hallway. "Damon, what's happening? You look terrible." "Cancel everything," I ordered, not slowing down. "Clear my schedule for the rest of the week." "But the merger." "Cancel it." I made it to my private office, locked the door, and barely collapsed onto the leather couch before another cramp seized me. I curled into a ball, pressing my hand to my stomach, and tried to breathe. Dr. Hayes' words echoed in my head. Your body will treat the fetus as a foreign invader. She was right. My alpha biology was trying to reject the pregnancy. And without Sebastian's pheromones to calm the response, my body was going to tear itself apart. I needed him. The thought made me want to vomit. I would rather die than call Sebastian King and beg for his help. But as another cramp ripped through me, stronger this time, so intense that I actually cried out, I realized that dying might be exactly what was going to happen. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to his contact. Sebastian King. The name sat in my phone like a loaded weapon. We hadn't spoken since that night. We had returned to our mutual hatred as if nothing had happened. My thumb hovered over the call button. Another cramp. A sharp, gasping sob escaped my throat. I pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Cross, Sebastian's voice came through the line, deep and rough and surprised. To what do I owe the pleasure? Come to gloat about the Morrison deal. Because I heard. Sebastian, I interrupted, my voice cracking. I need you. There was a long pause. What did you just say? His voice had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by something sharper. More alert. I need you to come to my office. Right now. Please. Cross, you're scaring me. What's going on? Where are you? Cross Industries. 47th floor. Please. Just hurry. The line went dead. 15 minutes later, 15 agonizing minutes of cramping, sweating, and trying not to lose consciousness. The door to my office burst open. Sebastian King stood in the doorway, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. He was taller than me by 3 inches, broad-shouldered and built like someone who spent his free time lifting cars. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he had run his hands through it a dozen times on the way over. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes, those dark, piercing eyes that had haunted my dreams for 3 years, were scanning the room with predatory intensity. But it was his scent that hit me first. Burning cedar and dark bourbon. Warm, smoky, and intoxicating. It flooded the room the moment he stepped inside, wrapping around me like a physical embrace. And the moment it touched my skin, the cramping stopped. I gasped, my body going limp against the couch as the pain receded like a wave pulling back from the shore. My racing heart began to slow. The nausea that had been building in my throat dissolved into nothing. Sebastian's eyes widened as he took a step closer, his nostrils flaring. Cross, he said slowly, his voice low and dangerous. Why do you smell like honey? I looked up at him, my face pale, my body still trembling from the aftermath of the rejection response. I had planned a lie. I had rehearsed a dozen explanations on the way to the clinic, a dozen ways to tell him without really telling him. But looking at him now, standing in my office, his enigma pheromones already calming my rebellious biology, I realized there was no point in pretending. Close the door, I said quietly. He did. Then he turned back to me, crossing his arms over his broad chest, waiting. I pushed myself up into a sitting position, running a shaky hand through my hair. My usual armor of icy confidence was gone. I was exposed, vulnerable, and I hated it. I'm pregnant, I said. The silence that followed was deafening. Sebastian didn't move, didn't blink. His face was completely unreadable, a mask of stone that gave nothing away. Say that again, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm pregnant, I repeated, louder this time. 4 weeks. Years. I found out 3 days ago. His jaw tightened. His hands, hanging at his sides, curled into fists. I saw the muscles in his neck cord with tension, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he was going to explode. Instead, he walked toward me. Slowly. Deliberately. Each step measured and controlled. A predator stalking its prey. I should have stood up. Should have faced him like an equal. But my body wasn't listening. It was too busy drinking in his scent, too busy basking in the relief of finally having the enigma's pheromones nearby. He stopped directly in front of me, looking down with those dark, unreadable eyes. How long have you known? He asked. 3 days. And you didn't tell me. I was going to handle it myself. Handle it. His voice rose slightly, the first crack in his composure. You were going to handle my child? Cross, do you have any idea what you're carrying? Enigma pregnancies and alphas are rare. Dangerous. I know. I interrupted, meeting his gaze despite the way my body wanted to submit. The doctor told me. She said I need your pheromones. That my body will reject the pregnancy without regular exposure to you. Something flickered in Sebastian's eyes. Something dark and possessive and terrifyingly intense. So that's why you called me, he said slowly. Not because you wanted to. Because you needed to. Yes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, without warning, he dropped to his knees in front of me. I stared at him, shocked. Sebastian King, the most powerful enigma in the city, the man who had never bowed to anyone, was kneeling at my feet. His hands came up, gripping my hips with a possessiveness that made my breath catch. He pulled me forward until I was perched on the edge of the couch, our faces inches apart. Let me make something very clear, Damon, he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through my entire body. I don't care about the rivalry. I don't care about Cross Industries or King Consolidated or any of the petty bullshit that's been keeping us apart. You are carrying my child. My blood. My legacy. He leaned closer, his lips brushing against my ear, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. You're mine now, he whispered. And I'm not letting you go. That was how it started. The first week was a war. Sebastian moved into my penthouse the same night, not because I invited him, but because he simply refused to leave. He showed up with a duffel bag, took over my guest room, and informed me that he would be staying until further notice. You can't just move into my house, I protested, following him as he walked through my living room like he was inspecting a potential acquisition. I just did, he replied, not even looking at me. Your security is pathetic, by the way. Anyone could walk in here. No one walks in here because I'm here. Not anymore. He finally turned to face me, crossing his arms. From now on, you have a security detail. My security detail. And you're not going anywhere without me. You can. I can and I will. His eyes flashed, and I felt the weight of his enigma aura press down on me. Not enough to force submission, but enough to make a point. You're carrying my child, Cross. That means your safety is my priority. I don't care if you hate it. I don't care if you hate me. You're going to do what I say when I say it, because your life and my child's life depend on it. I wanted to argue. I wanted to punch him in his stupid, perfect face. But the thing was, he wasn't wrong. My body had already proven that I couldn't do this alone. So I swallowed my pride, gritted my teeth, and said nothing. Living with Sebastian King was a waking nightmare. He was everywhere. In the kitchen, making breakfast before I even woke up. In my home office, watching me work with those dark, unreadable eyes. In the hallway outside my bedroom at night, pacing like a sentinel. He monitored my meals. No coffee, no alcohol, no sushi, no soft cheese, no anything that might pose even the slightest risk to the pregnancy. He monitored my sleep, insisting that I get at least 8 hours a night, and waking me up at the same time every morning with a glass of water and a protein shake. He monitored my stress levels, literally, with a medical-grade heart rate monitor that synced to his phone. You're being ridiculous, I told him on the third day, when he confiscated my laptop because my heart rate had spiked while reviewing a quarterly report. You're being stubborn, he replied, tucking the laptop under his arm. Your doctor said no stress. That report can wait. That report is time-sensitive. Give it back, King. Make me. I glared at him. He stared back, utterly unbothered. And that was the most frustrating part. I couldn't make him do anything. His enigma pheromones had an almost physical effect on me now, calming my alpha instincts and making it nearly impossible to summon the aggression I usually wielded like a weapon. Every time I tried to fight him, my body would betray me, relaxing into his scent like a cat basking in sunlight. By the end of the first week, I had stopped fighting. Not because I wanted to, but because I was too exhausted to keep it up. The pregnancy was already taking a toll on my body, the fatigue, the nausea, the constant hormonal fluctuations that left me feeling like a stranger in my own skin. Sebastian's presence helped, but it didn't erase the physical reality of what was happening to me. And slowly, imperceptibly, something else began to shift. It started with small things. The way Sebastian would brush his hand against my lower back as he walked past. The way he would stand just a little too close, his chest nearly touching my shoulder, his scent wrapping around me like a blanket. The way his eyes would linger on my stomach, still flat, still unchanged, with an expression that looked almost like wonder. "You're staring," I said one evening, catching him looking at me across the dinner table. "You're beautiful," he replied simply. I nearly choked on my water. "What?" "You heard me." He didn't look away, didn't flinch, just kept staring with those dark, intense eyes. "I've always thought you were beautiful, Cross. Even when I hated you. You don't hate me anymore." "No." He set down his fork, leaning back in his chair. "I don't think I ever did. I think I was obsessed with you. And obsession and hatred feel the same until they don't." My heart was pounding. I could feel my face flushing, and I hated it. Hated that he could see me like this, vulnerable and off balance. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Say things like that. Make this more than it is." Sebastian stood up, walking around the table until he was standing behind my chair. His hands came down on my shoulders, warm and heavy, and I felt his pheromones spike, dark bourbon and burning cedar, wrapping around me like smoke. "And what is this exactly?" he murmured, his lips near my ear. "This is a biological necessity," I said, my voice barely steady. "You're here because my body needs your pheromones. Nothing more." His grip on my shoulders tightened. "Is that what you tell yourself? That you don't feel anything when I touch you?" "I don't." "Liar." He turned my chair around so I was facing him, then dropped into a crouch so we were eye level. One of his hands came up, cupping my cheek, his thumb brushing across my lower lip. "Your scent is spiking," he said softly. "Vanilla and honey. You smell sweet when you're lying, Damon. Did you know that?" I tried to pull back, but his hand held me in place. "Let go of me, King." "Not a chance." He leaned in, and for one terrifying, exhilarating moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. But he didn't. Instead, he pressed his lips to the gland on my neck, the place where my scent was strongest, and breathed in deeply. A low, rumbling sound vibrated in his chest, something between a growl and a purr, and I felt my entire body go weak. "Mine," he whispered against my skin, and I couldn't even bring myself to disagree. The weeks passed. By the time I hit 8 weeks, my body had started to change in ways I couldn't ignore. The fatigue was constant, a bone-deep exhaustion that made even simple tasks feel monumental. My appetite had disappeared, replaced by persistent nausea that made every meal a battle. And my pheromones, once so sharp and controlled, were now a chaotic mess, shifting unpredictably between my usual peppermint and the sweet, soft scent of a carrier. Sebastian handled it all with a patience I didn't know he possessed. When I couldn't keep food down, he made me bland soups and toast, standing over me until I finished every bite. When I woke up in the middle of the night with cramps, he was there within seconds, his hand on my stomach, his pheromones flooding the room until the pain faded. When I snapped at him, which was often, he didn't snap back. He just waited calm and steady until the storm passed. It was infuriating. It was also comforting. "You're going soft on me, King," I said one afternoon, watching him cook in my kitchen. He had taken over the space completely. My refrigerator was now stocked with organic produce and prenatal vitamins, and my chef's knives had been replaced with ones he claimed were better. "I'm not soft," he replied without turning around. "I'm strategic. A healthy carrier means a healthy pup." "Pup?" The word felt strange in my mouth. "Is that what you call it?" He glanced over his shoulder, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "What would you call it?" I didn't have an answer. The truth was, I hadn't let myself think about the baby as a baby. It was easier to think of it as a medical condition, something to be managed, monitored, and eventually resolved. If I thought about it as a child, as my child growing inside me with Sebastian's dark hair and my stubbornness, I would lose my mind. But Sebastian didn't have that problem. He talked to my stomach constantly. Not full conversations exactly, but murmured words and soft reassurances, especially at night when he thought I was asleep. He would rest his hand on my still flat abdomen and whisper about the future, about teaching the baby to swim, about taking them to his family's cabin in the mountains, about watching them grow up strong and fierce and loved. I pretended not to hear. But I heard. At 10 weeks, everything changed. I was in the middle of a video call with my board of directors, my first public appearance since the pregnancy had been confirmed, and I was determined to project strength. Sebastian was hovering in the background, out of frame, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. "Mr. Cross," one of the directors said, leaning toward his camera, "there have been rumors about your health, about certain changes to your personal life. We'd like an explanation." "My health is fine," I said smoothly. "And my personal life is none of your concern. With respect, sir, when the CEO of King Consolidated is seen entering your building at all hours, it becomes our concern. Are you and Mr. King collaborating?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Sebastian beat me to it. He stepped into the frame, settling his hand on my shoulder with casual possessiveness. "Mr. King," the director stammered, clearly caught off guard. "We didn't realize." Clearly, Sebastian interrupted, his voice cool and commanding. "Let me make something clear to everyone on this call. Damon and I are partners, in business and in life. Any questions about his health, his decisions, or his fitness to lead should be directed to me. And I promise you, gentlemen, you don't want to have that conversation." The silence on the call was deafening. "Now," Sebastian continued, squeezing my shoulder, "unless there's actual business to discuss, this meeting is over." He reached over and ended the call. I stared at the blank screen, my heart pounding. "You can't just." "I just did." He turned to face me, his expression softening slightly. "They were circling. You're vulnerable right now, and they could smell it." I neutralized the threat. "I'm not a damsel in distress, King." "I know." He crouched down beside my chair, looking up at me with those dark, intense eyes. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. But even the strongest need backup sometimes. Let me be yours." I wanted to argue. I wanted to push him away and prove that I could handle everything on my own. But the truth was I couldn't. And the longer we lived together, the less I wanted to. So instead of arguing, I did something I never thought I would do. I reached out and touched his face. Sebastian went very still, his eyes widening slightly. My fingers traced his jaw, feeling the rough stubble, the sharp lines of his cheekbones, the warmth of his skin. "Thank you," I said quietly. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Sebastian turned his head, pressing a kiss to my palm, and I felt something shift between us, something that had nothing to do with biology or necessity, and everything to do with the way my heart was racing. That night, the cramps came back. I woke up gasping, my hand flying to my stomach as a sharp, twisting pain radiated through my abdomen. The sheets were soaked with sweat, and my pheromones were spiking wildly, peppermint and vanilla and honey all crashing together in a chaotic storm. "Sebastian," I called out, my voice thin and desperate. He was there in seconds. The door to my bedroom crashed open, and he crossed the room in 3 long strides, dropping onto the bed beside me. His hands found my stomach immediately, pressing against the source of the pain, and his pheromones flooded the room, dark bourbon and burning cedar, so thick I could taste them. "I'm here," he said, his voice low and steady despite the fear I could see in his eyes. "I'm here, Damon. Breathe with me." The pain was intense, but his presence helped. His scent wrapped around me, calming the frantic rejection response that was tearing through my body, and slowly, agonizingly slowly, the cramping began to fade. "I can't do this," I gasped, clutching his arm. "I can't. It's too much." Sebastian pulled me into his lap, wrapping his arms around me, so tightly I could barely move. He pressed his face into my hair, breathing deeply, and I felt the rumble of his purr vibrating through his chest. "You can," he said firmly. "You're the strongest person I know, Damon Cross. You built an empire from nothing. You faced down rivals twice your age and sent them running. You can do this. It doesn't feel like I can. It will." He pulled back just enough to look at my face, cupping my cheeks in his hands. "Listen to me. Your body is fighting this pregnancy because it doesn't understand what's happening. But we're going to teach it. Together. Every day, every hour, I'm going to be here. My pheromones, my touch, my voice, they're going to become part of you. And eventually, your body will stop fighting and start protecting." I stared at him, my breath still shaky, my heart still racing. "How do you know so much about this?" "I researched it," he admitted. "The night you called me, after you fell asleep, I spent hours reading every medical study I could find on Enigma Alpha pregnancies. I know what you're going through. I know what's coming. And I know how to help." Something warm bloomed in my chest, something that wasn't a baby, but felt just as powerful. "You researched it?" I repeated. "I would burn the world down for you, Damon. Reading a few medical journals is the least of what I'm willing to do." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. I just leaned forward and pressed my forehead against his, closing my eyes, and let his scent wash over me. We stayed like that for a long time, and for the first time since I had seen those 2 pink lines, I didn't feel alone. The second trimester brought changes I wasn't prepared for. At 14 weeks, my stomach began to swell. It was subtle at first, just a small curve that I could hide under loose shirts and carefully tailored jackets. But by 16 weeks, there was no hiding it. The pregnancy was visible, a permanent reminder of everything that had happened and everything that was still to come. I hated it. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror one morning, staring at my reflection with a mixture of horror and disbelief. The flat, muscular stomach I had worked so hard to maintain was gone. In its place was a round, growing bump that made me look soft, vulnerable, pregnant. Sebastian found me there 10 minutes later, still frozen in front of the mirror. "Damon." His voice was soft, concerned. "What's wrong?" "This," I said, gesturing at my stomach. "This is wrong. I don't even know what I look like. I don't recognize myself." Sebastian walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. His hands settled on my bump, warm and possessive, and he pressed a kiss to the back of my neck. "You look beautiful," he murmured. "I look pregnant." "Yes." His hands stroked over the curve of my stomach, gentle and reverent. "You're carrying our child, Damon. Our son." My breath caught. "Son? How do you know it's a son?" "I don't." He met my eyes in the mirror, his expression soft. "But I have a feeling. And I've never been wrong about a feeling before." I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because beneath the horror and the disbelief, there was something else, something small and fragile that I had been trying to ignore. "Hope? What if I can't do this?" I whispered. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Sebastian turned me around, his hands still on my bump, his dark eyes locking onto mine. "Then I'll be strong enough for both of us," he said simply. "That's what this is, Damon. Partnership. You carry our child, and I carry you. That's how it works." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw past the rivalry and the hatred to the man beneath. A man who had dropped everything to take care of me. A man who had researched Enigma Alpha pregnancies in the middle of the night so he would know how to help. A man who looked at my changing body with wonder instead of disgust. A man who loved me. The realization hit me like a freight train. Sebastian King loved me. And somewhere along the way, through the fighting and the forced proximity and the slow, inevitable softening of my defenses, I had started to love him back. "I think I'm in trouble," I said quietly. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that starts with, 'I love you,' and ends with me admitting that you were right about everything." His lips twitched. "I'm going to need you to say that again, but slower. Don't push it, King." He laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine, and pulled me into his chest, his arms wrapping around me, so tightly I could barely breathe. "I love you too, Damon," he murmured into my hair. "I think I've loved you since the night of the gala. Maybe longer. Maybe since the first time you looked at me across a boardroom and told me you were going to destroy my company." I was bluffing. I know. We stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't fear or resentment or desperation. I felt safe. At 20 weeks, Sebastian took me to the clinic for the anatomy scan. Dr. Hayes was waiting for us in the examination room, her expression professionally neutral despite the fact that Sebastian had sent his security team to sweep the building before we arrived. "Ready to see your baby?" she asked, gesturing to the ultrasound machine. I wasn't ready. I didn't think I would ever be ready. But I lay back on the examination table, lifting my shirt to expose my bump, and tried to breathe. Sebastian sat beside me, holding my hand in a grip that was almost painful. His pheromones were flooding the room, not intentionally, I didn't think, but as a response to his own anxiety. I could smell the dark bourbon, the burning cedar, and underneath it all, something raw and vulnerable that I had never smelled from him before. "Fear, dear." Hayes squeezed the cold gel onto my stomach, and I flinched. Then she pressed the wand against my skin, and the monitor flickered to life. For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then the image resolved, and I forgot how to breathe. There was a baby on the screen. Our baby. I could see the curve of the spine, the tiny fingers and toes, the small face with features that were already starting to look like something recognizable. "There's your pup," Dr. Hayes said softly, adjusting the wand. "Everything looks healthy. Strong heartbeat, normal development, good positioning. This is a very robust little one." The heartbeat filled the room, fast and strong, a rhythmic thumping that echoed off the walls and seemed to resonate in my chest. Sebastian made a sound beside me. I looked over, and my heart clenched. The most powerful enigma in the city was crying. Tears were streaming down his face, unchecked and unashamed, as he stared at the screen with an expression of pure, unguarded wonder. "Sebastian," I said softly. "That's our son," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Damon, that's our son." I looked back at the screen, at the tiny life growing inside me, and felt something shift in my chest. The wall I had built around my heart, the one that had kept me safe and alone for so many years, crumbled into dust. Tears pricked at my own eyes, and I didn't bother to hide them. "Hi, baby," I whispered, my free hand resting on my bump. "I'm your dad. The grumpy one is your other dad. Please don't inherit his stubbornness." Sebastian laughed, a wet, broken sound, and leaned down to press a kiss to my forehead. "I love you," he said. "I love you both so much." "Love you too," I replied, and for the first time the words didn't feel like a surrender. They felt like a victory. The third trimester was a battlefield. By 28 weeks, my bump was massive, so large that I could barely see my feet, let alone tie my own shoes. Sebastian had taken over that task, along with pretty much everything else. He cooked, he cleaned, he ran my company when I was too exhausted to look at a spreadsheet, and he never once complained. But the physical toll was brutal. My back ached constantly. My feet were swollen. The baby, who we had decided to name Alexander, Alex for short, had taken to using my ribs as a punching bag, and I spent most nights lying awake, trying to find a position that didn't feel like I was being crushed from the inside. "I can't do this anymore." I groaned one night, sprawled across the bed while Sebastian rubbed my lower back. "I'm never having another one. One and done. Vasectomy after this. I don't care what it costs." Sebastian chuckled, his hands working the knots out of my muscles. "We'll discuss it when you're not miserable and hormonal." "I'm not hormonal. You cried at a commercial this morning." "A commercial for laundry detergent. The family was so happy, Sebastian." He laughed again, and the sound was so warm, so full of love, that I couldn't even be annoyed. "Almost there," he said softly, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. Just a few more weeks. Easy for you to say. You're not the one growing a human being inside your body. No, he agreed, his hands sliding around to rest on my bump. But I'm the one who gets to take care of you. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I turned my head to look at him, at this man who had started as my enemy and become my everything, and felt the surge of emotion so powerful it almost hurt. Thank you, I said. For what? For staying. For not running when you could have. For everything. Sebastian leaned down, pressing his forehead to mine. I'm not going anywhere, Damon. I was never going anywhere. I just needed you to let me in. I'm glad I did. Me too. He kissed me then, soft and slow and full of promise, and I let myself fall into it, into him, into the life we were building together. At 36 weeks, Alex decided he was ready to make his entrance. It happened at 3 a.m. I woke up to a sharp, searing pain in my lower abdomen, different from the Braxton Hicks contractions that had been plaguing me for weeks. This was real. This was labor. Sebastian, I gasped, gripping his arm. Sebastian, wake up. He was awake instantly, his eyes snapping open, his enigma senses already on high alert. What is it? What's wrong? The baby. He's coming. Now. Sebastian moved like lightning. Within minutes, he had called Dr. Hayes, alerted his security team, and got me dressed and into the car. I didn't remember most of it. The pain was too intense, too all-consuming. But I remembered his voice. Low and steady and full of love, talking me through every contraction, reminding me to breathe, telling me how strong I was. You're doing so well, Damon, he murmured as we sped through the empty city streets. Just a little longer. Just hold on. I hate you, I gasped. I hate you so much. I know. I love you too. The delivery was brutal. Dr. Hayes had warned me that alpha bodies weren't designed for childbirth, that the process would be longer, harder, and more dangerous than it would be for an omega. She hadn't been exaggerating. For 12 hours I labored. Sebastian never left my side. He held my hand through every contraction, let me crush his fingers when the pain was unbearable, and never once complained about the fact that I had called him every name in the book. You're almost there, Dr. Hayes said finally, her voice cutting through the haze of exhaustion. One more push, Damon. Just one more. I looked up at Sebastian, who was hovering over me, his face pale and streaked with tears. Together, I whispered. Together, he agreed. I pushed. And then suddenly, there was a cry, loud and furious and absolutely perfect. And Dr. Hayes was placing a tiny, squirming bundle on my chest. Meet your son, she said, smiling. I looked down at Alexander for the first time, and my heart stopped. He was small, smaller than I had expected, despite all the warnings about enigma pregnancies, with a shock of dark hair and Sebastian's nose and my stubborn chin. His tiny fingers were curled into fists, and his cries were already filling the room with a ferocity that made me proud. Hi, Alex, I whispered, my voice breaking. I'm your dad. Sebastian leaned over us both, his arms wrapping around me and our son, his tears falling onto my shoulder. He's perfect, he murmured. He's absolutely perfect. He has your hair, and your attitude based on those lungs. I laughed, actually laughed, despite the exhaustion and the pain and the overwhelming flood of emotions, and pressed a kiss to Alex's forehead. Welcome to the world, little one, I said softly. It's chaos out there, but don't worry. You've got 2 dads who will burn it down for you. Sebastian's arms tightened around us both. Damn right we will, he said. Epilogue, 6 months later. The financial district had been in chaos for months. When the news broke that Cross Industries and King Consolidated were merging, not just in business, but in blood, the world had lost its collective mind. Rumors flew. Enemies circled. But none of it mattered. Because Sebastian and I weren't fighting anymore. We were building something new. I stood on the balcony of our penthouse, now a sprawling space that combined both of our properties into one, watching the sun set over the city. Alex was asleep in the carrier strapped to my chest, his tiny face peaceful, his breathing soft and even. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Sebastian wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me back against his chest, and pressed a kiss to my neck. "You should be resting," he murmured. "I should be doing a lot of things. Running my company, for one. Your company is fine. You have a very capable team. I have a very annoying enigma who keeps interfering. You have an enigma who loves you." His arms tightened around me. "And who is never letting you go." I leaned back against him, watching the sky turn orange and pink and gold, and smiled. 6 months ago, I had stared at a positive pregnancy test and thought my life was over. But it wasn't. It was just beginning. If someone had told me a year ago that the only thing capable of shattering my ruthless facade was a positive pregnancy test, I said softly, I would have destroyed them on the spot. Sebastian chuckled. And now, I turned my head looking up at him, at this man who had been my enemy, my rival, my tormentor, and now my partner, my lover, my everything. "Now I thank them," I said. He kissed me, deep and slow and full of promise, and somewhere in the distance, the city lights began to flicker on. Our empire was no longer made of steel and glass. It was made of love, and that, I had finally learned, was the only thing worth fighting for. Extra story. Before the pregnancy test, before the forced cohabitation, before the love, there was that night. If someone had told me that the winter charity gala would be the night everything changed, I would have laughed in their face and walked the other direction. My name is Damon Cross, and I don't do vulnerability. I don't do weakness. I'm a 27-year-old alpha CEO who clawed his way to the top over the broken bodies of everyone who ever doubted me. My pheromones are weaponized winter, sharp peppermint and crushed ice that makes grown men lower their eyes and step out of my path. I am untouchable. I am alone, and I intend to keep it that way. But tonight, the universe has other plans. The Grand Metropolitan Ballroom is a sea of black ties and champagne flutes, glittering chandeliers and hollow laughter. I'm standing near the bar, nursing a glass of bourbon I have no intention of finishing, watching the city's elite pretend they like each other for the cameras. It's exhausting. It's also the only night of the year I can't avoid him. Sebastian King, 32 years old. Enigma CEO of King Consolidated. 6 feet 4 inches of pure, devastating menace wrapped in a custom charcoal suit that probably costs more than my first car. His jaw could cut glass. His eyes are the color of dark whiskey, and they're currently fixed on me from across the room like I'm the only person in the building. My blood heats. My fists clench. My pheromones spike before I can stop them. Peppermint and ice, sharp and aggressive, a warning that says back off. Sebastian's lips curl into a slow, infuriating smirk. He knows exactly what he's doing to me. He's always known. That's the problem with enigmas. They can smell everything. Every flicker of attraction, every spike of anger, every secret you've buried so deep you forgot it existed. And Sebastian King has been smelling my secrets for 3 years. He raises his glass, a silent toast. I look away first. An hour later, the crowd has thinned. The champagne has flowed freely. And somehow, inexplicably, I'm standing in the VIP lounge with the one person I swore I would never be alone with. "How's business, Cross?" Sebastian asks, swirling the bourbon in his glass. He's lounging against the bar like he owns it, like he owns everything, his dark eyes never leaving my face. "None of your business, King. You hurt my feelings." "Good." He laughs, low and rough and infuriatingly attractive, and takes a step closer. My alpha instincts scream at me to hold my ground, so I do. I don't retreat. I don't flinch. I meet his gaze head-on. "Why are you here, Sebastian?" I ask, my voice cold. "The cameras are gone. You don't have to pretend we're civil." "Maybe I'm not pretending. Then you're delusional." He takes another step. We're close now, too close. I can smell him. Burning cedar and dark bourbon, warm and smoky and utterly intoxicating. My mouth goes dry. You've been avoiding me for 3 years, Damon, he says softly. Every boardroom, every negotiation, every charity event, you look at me like you want to kill me. Because I do. No. He shakes his head, his smirk fading into something more serious. You look at me like you're scared of me. And Sebastian King doesn't scare anyone. So what is it, really? I don't answer. I can't. Because he's right. I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of what he makes me feel, the way my heart races when he walks into a room, the way my body heats when he looks at me, the way I lie awake at night thinking about the curve of his jaw and the sound of his voice. I hate you, I say instead. I know. He sets down his glass. But hate and desire are the same thing, Cross. They're both obsessions. They both consume you. The only difference is what you do with them. Are you about to give me a TED Talk? I'm about to stop pretending. He closes the distance between us in one step, his chest nearly touching mine, his pheromones flooding my senses. I've wanted you for 3 years, Damon. Every time you've glared at me across a negotiating table, every time you've snarled insults at me in the press, every time you've walked away from me in a crowded room, I've wanted you. My breath catches. Say something, he murmurs. I should push him away. I should summon my alpha aggression, my ice-cold control, and remind him exactly who he's dealing with. But my body isn't listening. My body is leaning into his scent, drinking it in like oxygen after drowning. My hands are reaching up, gripping the lapels of his suit jacket. And my voice, when it finally comes, is barely a whisper. Then take me. The ride to his penthouse is a blur of dark streets and heavy silence. We don't touch. We don't speak. But his pheromones fill the confined space of the car, wrapping around me like smoke, and I can't stop breathing them in. Can't stop the way my body responds, the heat pooling in my stomach, the way my alpha defenses lower without my permission. This is dangerous. This is insane. I don't care. His penthouse is all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture, cold and stark and utterly Sebastian. The moment the door closes behind us, he turns. Last chance, Cross, he says, his voice rough. Walk away now, and we pretend this never happened. I'm not walking away. You should. Are you trying to talk me out of this? No. He steps closer, his hand coming up to cup the back of my neck. His thumb brushes against my scent gland, and I shudder. I'm giving you an out. Because once this starts, I'm not letting you go. Big talk for someone who's never had me. His eyes darken. Is that a challenge? Take it however you want. He kisses me. It's not soft. It's not gentle. It's teeth and tongue and desperate, consuming hunger. The kind of kiss that rewrites your DNA and makes you forget every kiss that came before it. His hands are in my hair, gripping, pulling, tilting my head back so he can deepen the angle. I gasp against his mouth. He swallows the sound. Bedroom, he growls against my lips. No, I don't remember the hallway. I don't remember crossing the threshold. All I remember is the feeling of his hands on my body, stripping away my suit jacket, my shirt, my belt, every layer of armor I've ever worn. He lays me out on his bed like an offering. And then he just looks at me. You're beautiful, he says quietly. I'm not. You're beautiful, Damon. Don't argue with me. I close my mouth. His gaze is too intense, too raw, like he's seeing past the Alpha CEO, past the ruthless reputation, past every wall I've ever built. He's seeing me, and I don't know how to handle that. Sebastian, I start. I know. He leans down, pressing his lips to my neck, right over my scent gland, and breathes in. I know you're scared. I know you're not ready for this. But I've waited 3 years, and I'm not waiting anymore. Then stop talking and touch me. His laugh vibrates against my skin. Bossy alpha. Always. What happens next isn't something I can put into words. His enigma pheromones flood the room, thick and heavy and inescapable, and my alpha instincts, so carefully controlled, so fiercely guarded, simply surrender. I've never felt anything like it. The way his scent wraps around me, blankets me, claims me. I stop thinking. I stop fighting. I just feel. His hands map every inch of my body. The scars, the muscles, the places I've never let anyone touch. His mouth follows, leaving a trail of fire across my chest, my stomach, my hips. And when he finally takes me, when he finally pushes inside me with a groan that sounds almost pained, I lose the last of my control. Look at me, he commands, his voice shaking. I do. His dark eyes are wild, pupils blown wide, his enigma dominance pressing against my alpha resistance like waves against a shore. He's holding back, I can tell. He's holding back because he's afraid of breaking me. Don't, I gasp. Don't hold back. I'll hurt you. I don't care. He breaks. The hours blur together. There's no time in this room, no past, no future, no boardrooms or rivalries or empires. There's only Sebastian's hands and Sebastian's mouth and Sebastian's voice in my ear, murmuring things I'll pretend to forget tomorrow. Mine. You're mine now, Damon. Say it. Say you're mine. I don't say it, but I think it. And when I finally fall apart, when the pleasure crests and crashes and leaves me gasping, shaking, utterly destroyed, he follows right after me, his release spilling deep inside me, his enigma pheromones flooding my system with a force that makes my vision go white. I've never felt anything like it. I've never been anything like it. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, a tiny voice whispers that nothing will ever be the same. I wake up alone. The sun is streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, blinding and accusing. My body aches in ways I didn't know were possible, deep internal aches that make me wince when I try to move. Sebastian is standing by the window, already dressed, a cigarette burning between his fingers. He doesn't look at me. We shouldn't have done that, he says quietly. No, I agree, sitting up and reaching for my clothes. We shouldn't have. It can't happen again. No, it can't. The silence stretches between us, heavy, suffocating, full of everything we're not saying. I dress quickly. I don't look at him. I don't let myself feel the warmth spreading through my chest, the phantom echo of his hands on my skin. This was a mistake. A collision of predatory instincts and too much champagne. It doesn't mean anything. By the time I reach the door, he speaks again. Damon. I stop. I don't turn around. If you ever need me, I won't. The door closes behind me. 3 weeks later, I'm staring at a positive pregnancy test and realizing I was a liar. But that's a different story. Sebastian spoke the morning after. I watch him leave. My penthouse feels empty the moment the door closes. Colder, darker, like the sun went out when he walked away. I take a long drag of my cigarette and try to ignore the way my hands are shaking. What did I just do? Damon Cross, my enemy, my rival, the alpha who has haunted my dreams for 3 years, spent the night in my bed. I tasted him, touched him, claimed him, and now his scent is everywhere. Peppermint and ice and something softer underneath, something he probably doesn't even know he has. I close my eyes and breathe it in. Mine, my enigma instincts purr. He's ours now. No, he's not. He's Damon Cross, the Ice King, the man who would rather burn his empire to the ground than let anyone get close. Last night was a mistake. A biological imperative. 2 predators colliding in the dark. It doesn't mean anything. Except my knot still aches. Except my pheromones are still spiking, reaching for someone who isn't here. Except I can't stop thinking about the way he looked at me, that brief, unguarded moment before he fell asleep, like I was the first person who had ever seen him. I stub out my cigarette and press my palms against my eyes. Get it together, King. He's your enemy. He'll never be anything else. But even as I think it, I know I'm lying. Because when he walked out that door, he took something with him. Something I didn't even know I had to give. And I have a terrible feeling I'll never get it back. Then,